This conference will now be recorded.
All right, it's September 30th, 2021, and we're having a budget work session to make any final adjustments to the 2022 budget before we have our adoption on October 12th, 2021. We're on the phone with clerk treasurer, town manager, and our budget consultant, Janet Alexander. And thanks, Janet, for being here and for all your help on the budget. We have four council members on the line, and I'll take a roll call now. Ron?
Here.
Dan?
Here.
Carla?
Present.
Ashley? Ashley's not here, and I'm Jen. I'm here, so we have 4 of the 5 council members. All right. So there's only 2 things on the agenda. First, we'll talk about the budget, and then we'll do the salary ordinance, which that's just, I'm hoping that Reed can have something drawn up for our October meeting. But we should have all had a chance to review those line entries on budget form 1. And from looking at our monthly reports this year, it's clear that we don't spend what we budget. And Janet has said that we're super frugal, and that's intentional. That's how it should be. I think I can speak for all of us when I say that we always need to be thoughtful about spending taxpayer money, and we need to make sure that it's being spent for the good of the town. So I don't think it's bad that we're frugal. So Janet, I do have a couple questions for you. I don't know if you want me to ask them, or if you want to go over what you needed to go over, and then I can ask you if they don't get covered by what you have to say.
Well, no. So I think you should go ahead and ask me questions. One of the things I wanted to point out is at our last meeting, we talked about doing me preparing a cash flow to look at spending and revenue and kind of a projection. And I do a very basic cash flow. I just want something that tells me how to budget going forward. I know that you've had one done that was very, very professional and contained lots of information. My cash flows are just really fund-based, revenue, a little bit of history, and a little bit of projection so that we can kind of get an idea of whether or not our revenue and our spending plans are sustainable. And I did a cash flow, a simple one, to match up with your budget. And I want you to know that it looks like in every instance, your spending and your revenue are sustainable at current levels. But
cool.
The process for tonight really is for you to tell me if you have any questions, or if we want to go through every fund. However you want to do this, I'm open to.
Okay. I guess we can ask questions, and then if we feel like we need to just go through it, we can.
Absolutely.
Okay, so my first question was, so this past year, we have spent more on professional services probably than ever before. I can't guarantee that, but likely. But we're reducing that budgeted amount in 2022. So can you just walk us through what happens in the very unfortunate situation that we need to spend more than we have actually budgeted?
Well, actually, so last year in your 2021 budget, or this current year, I'm already thinking of this year as last year. We budgeted $60,000, and we did that, if I remember right, because last year you all told me that there were pending lawsuits and you had a lot of legal issues that you were undertaking. So I did budget that one fairly high. For 2022, I dropped it to $42,000, and I did that because we have an unencumbered balance of $42,000 on the books right now. We had only spent 30% of this year's appropriation by June 30th. So I felt like it seemed as though you guys were out of the woods and things were settling down, and we really didn't need to budget an amount as high as we had in the past.
And Janet, those professional services are also split up between like NVH, the edit, and utilities. So that's where like we're not setting everything in professional or in general.
Okay, so when I think of the professional services, I was thinking of the general fund. That one I dropped from 60,000 to 42. Let me look at motor vehicle. Motor vehicle professional services is always for construction or infrastructure. So when I look at the motor vehicle, other services and charges total, we did put in 100,000 for construction, repair, and preservation of roads. I considered that a defensive budget because I wasn't sure how much you got done this year. Last year we budgeted 100,000 in MVH for a community crossing project. I don't know if that actually happened. If it didn't, that money won't be spent, and we'll have it in the budget for next year. But I don't see any other professional services besides those two. Am I missing something?
The infrastructure, that 100,000, a huge majority of that will be spent here soon because our construction has just started, I think, like this week or last week.
So if that is the case, then I would suggest that in the budget for 2022, we drop that down just to the amount that we expect to receive in surtax and in wheel tax, maybe even just the half that comes into the 203 fund. But Jen, does that answer your question, or have I missed something?
So what happens if we have 42,000 budgeted, but we spend that by July? We have to spend more than we budget.
You do an additional appropriation, and because you have cash reserves. So if you want to look at, this might be a really good time just to look at the cash flow. So if you just look at the general fund cash flow, it's the page 2 in the cash flow. Does everybody have that?
Yep.
Okay. So let me just walk through it. So at the upper left-hand corner, it tells you which fund we're talking about. The far left column starts out with the types of revenue. So, well, go across the top. I start with the years 2018 through 2025. 2018, 2019, and 2020 are historical, actual. This comes off of the annual financial report. The starting balance is as of January 1, so that was the cash reserves on hand when the year started. The data along the far left side lists the types of revenue where the funds are coming from that support our efforts, starting out with general property tax. And then the second one is your local option income tax. Those are your two highest revenue sources generally. The third highest source of revenue would be vehicle aircraft excise tax distribution. And then everything else kind of qualifies as miscellaneous revenue. Some are better than others. The next section is expenditures, and it's broken down by the class of expenditure. So personal services is employment. So salaries, taxes, health insurance, clothing allowance, all of those employment related costs. The second category is operating supplies, so that can be anything depending on the type of department. So in an office, it's paper and pens. In the police department, it might be bullets. In the street department, it might be grass seed. Then other services and charges, and that's where professional services would normally be seen. And that's where you see in the past, it kind of runs the gamut from 60,000 to 90,000 in 2020. And then capital outlays and other disbursements might be transfers or insurance reimbursements, just random. And then excess deficit of revenues, that column below the total expenditures, that demonstrates whether you have, it's subtraction. So it's total revenues minus expenditures. So if you look at 2018, you'll see that we spent $71,226 more than came in 2018. So excess deficit. So if it's in the negative, it means that we either budgeted or actually spent more than walked in the door. It's always better to have an excess as opposed to a deficit.
Yeah.
And then the very bottom column, or the last two columns, is the ending cash balance, and then the percent remaining. And that percentage is your reserve cash percentage. And we generally want to have 50% or more. In most cases, you're in fine shape. There's nothing on your general fund that would concern me. When I look at those percentages, everything looks strong. So the column for 2020, everything from 2021 forward is projection, because we haven't finished 2021. We haven't finished spending 2021 or receiving all of the revenue. But because of your spending pattern this year, and because of historical, and I'm part of this, the first time I did your budget was last year, and I can see where we have over budgeted, over appropriated, to the point where even with our estimates on revenue, it looks like we're overspending, when in fact you are not going to overspend. So if you look at the back of that page, I made some recommendations, I gave you some notes, but I really have an opinion about appropriations for your general fund for next year and going forward. And the next page, page 4, general fund budget recommendations, shows where I propose reducing the spending in 2022 to more realistic and budgets for each area. They all remain 100% fundable. Even if you didn't change a thing today, it's all fundable. Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions about what you're seeing?
I wish we would have had this last time so I could digest it for the past month, because it's a lot of information. It's very well laid out. Love that.
Thank you. I really just, the thing that I think is the takeaway for tonight is that your ending cash balances are so strong. Your revenues are remaining strong. You don't spend a lot of money, which means that you have the ability to do large projects if you want to, and you could easily fund them. So if you adopt the budget that we presented, it'll be like last year. It'll be a little over appropriated. But if you choose to reduce any of the line items, you have cash to appropriate if the need arises.
Okay. So we got our first distribution of ARP money in August. So we're going to start planning for that. Is it your understanding that this money does not have to be budgeted? I know there's a ton of reporting requirements that Michelle has to follow. I've been trying to learn about all that. But is there anything else that you can think of that should be on our radar for this money?
Absolutely. So as soon as you have a plan for how you're going to spend that, you will have to appropriate the money through the additional appropriation process. And I think I've had some people add it into their budget, but I actually believe that there's no point in doing that until you have a full-blown plan that articulates in a very specific way how the funds will be used and how they comply with the IFA regulations.
Yeah.
I'm very concerned about the ARP money. There's so many people that have wish lists on that when I still don't see any flexibility in how it's to be used. And because you did not lose cash in 2020, you saw no reduction in revenue in 2020.
Yeah.
The only right now is infrastructure for water or sewer, and those are going to have to be well-planned, engineered repairs. I don't think it can be just, buying parts.
Right.
So, but there is the additional appropriation process required, and that should be part of the planning process.
Okay.
Okay. So were there any line items that anyone specifically wanted to talk about or change?
So Jen, is this where you want me to go ahead since you guys aren't going line by line?
Oh, and we certainly can go line by line, whatever the group wants.
Ron, Carla, Stan, do you guys want to go line by line?
Doesn't matter.
I mean,
No. Just...
okay.
So,
No.
I will say, I was suggesting reductions in the general fund line items, mathematically reduction, but if you don't have any specifics, and like I said, you guys, even if you're over appropriated, you're so careful, I can't see it actually mattering. We may want to get more specific next year.
Okay. Did anyone else have any other line items that they wanted to? Oh, Michelle, for yours. So I don't know what everybody else is thinking, but I thought for yours, for your request for an attorney, I was thinking we could move that to the salary ordinance, just like how we have the town attorney on there. If that works.
I don't want to, I understand if you want to finalize it in the salary ordinance. However, the big argument during the litigation was that the state statute says that it needs to be appropriated in the budget. So it needs to be in the budget or on the record or all of that, because that was the biggest argument from you guys, is that I never asked for the appropriation during the budget. So the salary ordinance isn't done in the budget. So it needs to be said on record or done or whatever during the budget process. And then, I mean, it can be thrown into the salary ordinance, but it needs to be, I guess, discussed and decided in the budget process. So, like, I had talked to Janet before the meeting, because obviously the clerk treasurer's office doesn't have any actual, like, private or allowance or appropriations except for the clerk treasurer's salary. So I had asked her, would it be easier for me to have actually an appropriation in the general fund that says clerk treasurer, professional services, or attorney fees, or that it just be on the record that that appropriation would be in with the professional services? That's the $42,000. So the $6,000 that I requested would be appropriated in that $42,000. And she said either way, as long as it's in the minutes and on the record. So we can either do a separate appropriation line item in general for the clerk treasurer, attorney fees, or professional services, or it can just be stated on the record and in the minutes that that money is allocated for me in the professional services under general.
Okay. Yeah, I think the second one, just like we budget everybody's salaries, I think just saying, the clerk treasurer's attorney fees will come out of professional services, just like, the town of Dayton's attorney fees come out of professional services. I don't know.
Right, but I think that we need to have the amount that's going to be, from my understanding, the amount that's going to be appropriated in the budget in that line item needs to be in the record for the budget, that it's being appropriated or allocated to me in the budget. And then, like I said, it can also be put in the salary ordinances just like Reed's is, but...
So are you wanting a separate line item? I'm not...
No. So I'm saying, so if you guys agree to my request, you would say that the clerk treasurer's professional services, if that's what you want to call it, because that's what the line item is, will be allocated in general professional services to the clerk treasurer rather than creating a whole separate line. But I don't think that you can simply just state that in the budget that there will be money allocated or appropriated to the clerk treasurer. I think it actually has to be the amount.
So you just want to discuss now the amount, and then everybody says, yes, that's the amount. We vote on the amount, and then we say this will be part of professional services from the general fund.
Correct, yeah. Because if that's what I'm understanding with the Indiana code or the state statute where it says it needs to be allocated in the budget for the next year. So I think that was one of the biggest arguments, because in 2019, I wasn't preparing or thinking that I was going to need an attorney. So again, like in my letter, when I talked to Mitchell, general services for 2021 has been very minimal with him. It's not, I want to say it's maybe like $2,000 so far for this year, if that. So the only reason why he told me to ask for $6,000 is just, again, it's like over budgeting. Just because it's there doesn't mean that you're going to spend it. But like I listed, there's many different things, especially if an audit, like when the audit comes here, or if there's any other issues in general, the money is there. So the biggest expense for 2021, it has been litigation fees, not general services. But I'm hoping that there won't be any litigation issues next year. So.
So looking at the letter you sent, this $6,000 appropriation would be used for the following services for the clerk treasurer office: assistance in excelling using my clerk treasurer duties, special projects that are going on in the town, bond reviews, audits, personnel, state board of accounts compliance, public records request reviews, assistance regarding responsibilities and duties, any possible litigation, any other issues or concerns that may arise in the capacity of the clerk treasurer or the clerk treasurer's office. So we'll have a new attorney. Obviously, unfortunately, Reed will be done at the end of the year, so we'll have a new attorney. And I'm hopeful that you'll be able to work with that new attorney and ask questions while discharging your duties. And the State Board of Accounts doesn't give legal advice, but they do advise on their audit position, which reflects the law. And AIM, we pay dues to AIM, so there's advice and guidance there for both clerks and counsels. And a lot of this, you know, any other issues or concerns that may arise in the capacity of the clerk treasurer, like I don't think that clerk treasurer attorney fees are just for issues in the clerk treasurer's office. I think that it was very clearly stated by the judge that clerk treasurer attorney fees are for what was the exact word? Genuine legal disputes that arise between the counsel and the clerk treasurer, and which there should be very, very, very few. And like discharging your duties, you've been at this for 3 years now, and you're a very smart person, and I think you got the handle on it pretty well. And so I don't feel comfortable just over budgeting and just spending it on perhaps frivolous things when we're going to be paying a town attorney that hopefully, you know, you'll be able to utilize. And like previously, when I talked to other towns similar to our size, no one really budgeted it, and the people that did said, yeah, $200 is in there, but it never gets used, or you know, it's always in the line item for, you know, $300, but we never use it. It's never necessary. So while I'm not opposed to appropriating money if necessary, I would rather wait until it's necessary to appropriate that money. And previously we gave $1,200, and that was more than fair. That was more than reasonable. So I would like to appropriate, did I say 12,000? I meant 1,200. I would like to appropriate $1,200 again this year.
I read the paperwork for the the attorney's office that you guys are going to be interviewing to possibly be the town attorney. The attorney that if we do hire them, I read is literally an attorney that they're waiting to pass the bar exam. So he is going to be a very fresh out of the water attorney. Not saying he's not going to be good, but from reading that letter, he's going to be, you know, having to ask them questions, and he's going to have to learn. However, one, we won't know all of that until after we adopt the budget. It's not going to, it's my choice who I have to represent me. So like right now, the council is pretty much accusing me of doing stuff that I shouldn't have been doing when I had utilities. So if that comes up and I need to have that legal representation or that defense per whatever happens, obviously I'm not going to be able to use the town attorney to represent me. And the Indiana Code states that I can have whatever legal representation that I want. So again, like I said, there's been very minimum as far as general services. No, State Board of Accounts does not give you any legal advice. There has been numerous times that I have called to talk to Todd regarding certain things. Can I do this? Can I do that? Was this done the right way? Was that done the right way? And he always tells me to go consult with my attorney. So again, like Reed has made it clear that he represents the town council. And obviously everybody knows that the town council and I have a very complicated relationship. And I don't think everything is going to be butterflies and kittens for the next 2 years. If you all believe that, then, I mean, we all know. I feel like we have gotten past a lot more things and have been working better together. However, we can't base on what we're hoping for the next year or what this other attorney, and you guys cannot force me to use your attorney. So again, this is why the money gets appropriated now in the budget, because once the budget is done, and if you guys don't do it, then we're right back to square A where we were in 2020 when, and I'm sitting here telling you that right now, I don't even think that I've been at 2,000 for the whole year. And it's still trying to say, and I have talked also to many towns that are our size who, actually Wolcott is one of them. She walked in and immediately went and hired an attorney. Her counsel didn't ask any questions. She sends them the bills and they approve it and pay it, no questions asked, because she knows that she's entitled to that. No, not every town needs that, but we are a very special, complicated little town. So again, just because it's there, but I don't want us to have to go through another issue where, again, like if you appropriate $1,200 right now, according to Reed, yes, I can come to you if that $1,200 is spent, and you guys say, okay, well, we'll give you another $1,200. But I mean, do we want to really keep going through that rodeo because we know what's going to end up happening?
Jen?
How much did you, one second, Ron, how much did you ask at the end of the lawsuit? You were asking for, I think it was $25,000 to cover the litigation fees and your general services.
That was for 2 years. That's what Mitchell had asked for, but then you guys settled on $6,000.
Right, but you spent a lot of money, right?
That was over 2 years, and most of that was litigation, or I think it was almost 50-50. And that's why I'm saying I don't believe in 2022 that I'll even use $6,000, but I'm pretty sure I'll probably use more than $1,200, whether it be with your guys' attorney or my own. Because that attorney that you guys are looking at to hire only gives you 8 hours of legal representation in a quarter. So we're going to end up paying that attorney hourly and probably 2 or 3 weeks at a time into each quarter. So it doesn't matter whether I talk to your attorney or I talk to Mitchell, but I should feel comfortable with whoever I want to represent me. And with the stuff with the council going back and forth with me, it's more comfortable for me to have my own separate attorney. Because again, if I'm having an issue or a conflict with you of you guys telling me I need to do this way, but I feel like I need to do it a different way, he's ultimately your guys' attorney, not mine. And then again, we're going to be right back to square one.
Right. Yes, if we are telling you to do something illegal, you absolutely need to have your own.
I didn't say illegal.
That has never been the case. And the money that you did use was not used. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you need money, yeah, we'll get you the money, but we are not going to just give you $6,000. At least I'm not going to give you $6,000 to just squander away on, I don't want a window in my office, but
that wasn't what I talked to him about.
I don't want to move offices, but I'm moving offices. So what I'm saying is, yep. One second. You do get to choose your attorney. We will give you the money. We will set the amount, and you can choose your attorney. If you find an attorney that costs $100 an hour, you can have 12 hours. If you find an attorney that costs $200 an hour, you get 6 hours. If you find an attorney that costs $1,200 an hour, you get an hour. We will not tell you what attorney to hire, but we will appropriate the money. And the money is not because you don't like us. The money is not because you will not get along with us. That is not what the money's for. The money is for genuine legal disputes, which are very, very rare. And in the case that it does arise, we are in a situation where we could appropriate more money as necessary.
So it was okay for you guys to spend $200 an hour to try and take a Facebook page. What was the legal revenue or avenue that you took to pay Reed $200 to try and take a Facebook page?
You mean the official Dayton page that had public documents that you deleted?
They are not deleted. They are still on Facebook right now. And they're also all printed in the safe.
Okay.
Every single one.
Go ahead, Ron. What were your thoughts?
My only, it just seems simple that we allocate $1,200, Michelle, because the council does decide the amount and only the council decides it. Michelle says that shouldn't have any big problems this year. She hasn't used nearly the $2,000. Well, let's hope that goes on, and hopefully you won't even use $1,200. And so if something really important comes up in the future, we can always have a meeting and appropriate it as it goes on, but so that the council knows at each time what this money's going for. And like Jen said, it isn't frivolous or used on just stuff that it really shouldn't be used on. So there's two avenues. We allocate some, from what I've seen in other towns and stuff. 1,200 seems like a very fair amount, and we especially when no clerk in Dayton's ever had this money allocated for other attorneys and everything. But anyway, I think if you need a motion, I'd like to make a motion that we allow $1,200 for the clerk's attorney and add it to the 2022 salary ordinance. So,
But if you also remember, Reed stated during a meeting in 2021, or no, the beginning of 2020, that what I talked to my attorney about, or what services that I used for him, is client and attorney. Just like Reed doesn't have to sit here and tell me what you guys talk about, just like Libby does not send detailed invoices to say what you guys talk about. So it's funny that you guys think that that's all I talk to Mitchell about, but it's not. Like, you guys think that all I do is whine and cry to him about a window or my office, or
the
that you guys
security
said something.
system or whatever,
Huh?
or the security system or whatever. But anyway, that's
I've
just
never talked to him about the security system.
hopefully
All right.
you said you won't need an attorney for much, and hopefully we can get along. I think this would help us all get along a little better than just throwing out a lot of taxpayers' money. And I agree with Jen. So,
All right. I second Ron's motion to appropriate $1,200 for the clerk treasurer's attorney fees, and that'll be included in the professional services in our budget, but it'll also be in our salary ordinance. Before we take a vote, is there any other discussion? Dan or Carla?
Nope.
Okay. We'll take a roll call vote. How do you vote? Dan?
Yes.
Ron?
yes.
Carla? Carla? All right. Says she's on here, but she must be having trouble. I vote yes. So that passes 3-2. I guess Carla couldn't vote. Let me message Carla to see if we can get her back on. I don't even know if she can hear us. Oh, okay. Did anyone else have any other line items?
So Jen, the vote was 3, so it passed, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Carla can hear us, we just can't hear her. I think she's gonna call back in. I'm gonna pause the meeting just for a brief minute
Yeah.
so she can get back on.
Yes.
Carla, are you on? You may be muted on your end.
Can you hear me?
There you are. Welcome back.
Yes. I said yes, and I voted yes.
Good, good.
Okay. I don't know that I actually stated the motion before the vote. I asked for discussion, and I didn't actually state the motion. So we'll take another vote just in case that was necessary. So the motion was to appropriate $1,200 for the clerk treasurer's attorney fees, and we'll put that in the salary ordinance. We'll take a roll call vote. Again, Stan,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Carla,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So that's 4. Not entirely sure that was necessary, but just in case. Okay. Janet, one line item that I noticed that I was going to mention was movie night. We have $2,000 appropriated, and I don't necessarily want to change that amount, but I was wondering if we could change that from movie night to just say something like community enrichment. It has a more broad use.
What fund is that in?
General.
And
It's the second to last line on page 1 of budget form 1.
oh, yeah, I can change that to community promotions.
Community enhancement or community enrichment. Is that okay with everyone else?
Yes.
That's fine with me.
Carla?
Yes.
Okay.
Got it.
Anyone else have anything? Ron?
No, I don't have my one. Do we have enough money in to cover an increase in the insurance for the town?
Oh, yeah, our
Yes.
insurance went up major.
Yes,
Okay.
I was worried about that, and I actually put in 32,000. Last year we had 14,300. I don't know how that happened, but yes, I did increase that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. What's the story on your fire contract?
It's each year it's 20,800, I think.
20,500.
Oh,
Or 20, yeah. And it was 19,800 for what, 15 years, I think so. It stays about the
okay,
same.
so it's probably going to stay there.
Yeah.
Okay, I was worried about that. I wasn't sure what to make of that.
Was there anything else, Janet, that you saw that you thought needed to be changed?
There's just one weird, so I was thinking about reducing the budget, but because of the way you spend, I don't really see that there's necessity to do that. But I think maybe next year, since we've made some adjustments this year, we can look closer next year, line by line. But let me look real quick at, I do think since you're finishing that community crossing project this year, we should reduce the MVH budget for next year. I threw in the 100,000 in MVH because I wasn't sure where that project stood.
No,
If you're,
we need that in there, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always have it at 100,000.
We have that project each year, you know.
and I get that, but we won't have as much pay. You'll have to use, so you'll have the 203 fund. Okay, so I'll explain my dilemma. You know, now that they're splitting the distribution money, so I get nervous because we won't have 100,000 in the 203 fund, but we certainly will have the money. But the matches can come from MVH, local road and street, from edit, or CCD. So you look at the cash flow on MVH. It's on page 6.
Okay.
So you see that the percentage, percentage of the cash balance divided by the expenditures is at 12%. It's possible that the LGF might cut our budget because our revenues won't actually support that. It normally has to be 15% or above. So it's possible that they'll order a modest cut.
What did we do that's so different?
It's just cash. So it depends on what we end up. So if you look at 2020, you still had plenty of cash at the end of 2020. Depending on how we spend this year, it's just eating up our cash. And the other thing is that we're not getting as much MVH distribution as we were. If you look, we were actually heading up into the 60,000, almost 70,000, and it's dropped. I don't know why, but the state's estimates are low. You notice this year we were estimating 60,000. Next year they dropped it just even like $4,000. So I don't know what's up with that, and I don't know how long that's going to go on. So if we wanted to do $100,000 match next year, you definitely have the money available in local road and street to pull that out. So even if we reduce the MVH contribution to it, we still have the ability to do a $100,000 match.
Okay.
And it will probably recover. It's worth taking the chance just leaving it in there at 100,000 and seeing if they'll approve it with just 12,000 or 12%. Sorry.
So under expenditures, when it says capital outlays,
Yeah.
there's nothing for 2019?
So sometimes what they do is they pay it out, and it must not have been paid out of this one, or it was paid out of other services and charges.
What?
Yeah, something's fun.
This doesn't,
Yeah,
it just doesn't make sense that it would be this drastic.
Well, when you plan a spending versus when you plan to spend it versus when you spend it. So we had a large project in 2020. It may have just not been completed in 19. It may have started, but didn't get paid for until 2020.
Hey, Jen, this is Mark.
Hi, Mark.
We ended up skipping a year because we didn't get the contract closed out, so we were not eligible for funding.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, remember when Alex didn't finish the paperwork and the board didn't check it? We lost that quarter.
No,
We lost.
it was like they didn't pay back the excess amount or something.
Yes,
So
we had received $2,000 too much, and we didn't close it out. We were in the process of switching town clerks, and it just got lost in the shuffle. So we were not eligible for that round of funding, so we didn't do projects then.
Okay. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah.
So then that makes sense for 2019. For 2020,
So in 2020,
I-
your project, or at least your match, was 85,000.
Mhm.
So
Yes,
the other
that's
thing,
correct.
so
Because it
we're
was supposed
budgeting.
to be less, but then
The bids came in high.
yeah. So what do we reduce MVH to?
So I would just cut off. I'd take out. I would reduce that 100,000 to 90,000. But remember, you also have, if you look at local road and street, you have a lot of cash. So even though we only appropriated 20,000,
Yeah.
you can still appropriate whatever you need for that match.
Okay.
You also have riverboat money, which you don't normally use, but we appropriated 15,000 that can also be used for the match.
That makes sense to me.
So
You
if,
just have to
if
say
I,
it 6 times and then I get it.
it's okay. Don't worry about it. It's hard to think. I mean, you're thinking about something you haven't even started that won't start until next March. There's a lot of abstract thinking going on here. It's not a big deal. So I want to take that down to 90,000. I think that will make me feel a little safer on the full appropriation, if that's okay.
I think yes. What does everyone else think?
Sure.
I heard Ron. I heard Jen.
Ann and Carla?
Mark?
I said fine. Can you hear me?
Got that.
Will now
Mark,
be
what's
recorded.
your opinion?
Well, I think it should be twice as much. Simply because it's a 75-25 cost share, and
you're echoing, Mark.
and you have to take advantage of that.
You have to have the cash to do it. So, I mean, we didn't appropriate enough in local road, but we could do an additional appropriation in the spring. Like I said, there's like almost 100,000 sitting in that fund. So we could do an additional appropriation from local road next year, first of the year.
Sure, we don't know how long this community crossing matching grant program is going to be around. So I guess if we decide to do more than what is budgeted, we can always, you reappropriate funds or something.
You can do an additional appropriation, and you do have some, you have some pockets of money. So your edit money can also be used for road construction. Your CCD fund can be used for road construction. So I'm looking. You have 200 and some thousand. You have more than 200,000 unappropriated money in edit. You have 100,000 in local road and street. So we have pockets. If you have roads and you need project funding, it can be found, I assure you. And the other thing I do want to tell you, with all of the federal infrastructure money that's flowing into the state, that gives me a really good feeling about community crossing continuing, at least for a few more years.
Yeah.
Really, in this case, it's just modifying what we did in the MVH to make sure that we get that fully funded for next year. And again, I don't see you spending 100%. Well, I know you're going to spend your capital project money from MVH, but I expect you to have balances remaining in the fund when we close out this year too. But we also don't have to do it. We can also take the chance. I mean, if the DLGF cuts the budget, then they cut the budget and we just do an appropriation. It might not happen. We're fully funded. There's 12% remaining.
Stan, any thoughts? Oh, I think. Stan, are you there? Stan, are you there? Nope, that's not him. I think we lost Dan, actually. Janet, did you have anything else for us? Any other
No, well,
comments?
there was one thing that came up when I did the cash flow. You have this really funky fund called cable franchise fee. And I only call it funky because cable franchise fees have been paid for years into towns. But I've never seen a town that had a franchise fee fund. Normally the money is considered just a general revenue. It goes right into the general fund. So I wanted to suggest a couple things, or at least remind you. I know Ron knows these things, but they might not be common knowledge among the council. But the council has the authority to transfer money from the CUME Capital Improvement Fund, which is cigarette tax money. That money comes in every year. It can be transferred from the CUME Cap Improvement Fund by resolution into the general fund. You get a small amount of money from that one. And then I would think also, because cable franchise fee is a non-standard fund, you could also by resolution transfer that money by resolution into the general fund. There's 11,000 roughly in the fund in cable franchise fee. You have used it in the past for a couple things, but I'm not sure what you've used it for. It's just such an odd little fund.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the cable franchise our ADA money or it's in an ordinance to be used as ADA money, correct?
Oh, that's interesting.
Am I saying that correctly?
That's correct. What did we spend out of that fund in the most recent years, Janet?
Well, it looked like about 25,000. 25,000 in 2020.
What did we do in 2020?
It would have paid for the ADA ramps as part of the community crossing projects.
Yes.
Okay. So you do have a designated use for that. Okay. Every town's different. When I see something quirky, I have to look into it.
Sorry, Janet.
Okay.
I just want to clarify. So $25,000 in 2020 of community crossing money that we paid out was specifically for ADA ramps?
Yep, we put in, I think, it was 8 or 9 of them, and they're about $3,000 a piece.
Real spendy little ramp. Okay. Sorry, go ahead, Janet.
No, that's really kind of cool. I've never heard of doing it that way, but what a great way to use that money. So you get about $9,000 a year in that money. So that's an excellent use. The CCI fund is just kind of a pitiful little fund in a way. You have a good bit of cash in there. You started the year with $41,000, but you only get, some years you've gotten as much as $5,000, but on average you get $3,000 a year in cigarette tax money that goes into the CCI fund. But that would be $3,000 that you could transfer into general. Another one is that you are permitted by law to transfer edit money by resolution into the general fund. And like I said, you do have significant balances in your edit fund. We budget $60,000 a year. It does appear that you have been spending some of it. The most you've ever spent was in 2020. You spent $55,000, and I did budget $60,000, or you budgeted $60,000 for 2021, and I repeated that in 2022 and going forward. And I will say, I do want to point out that the cash flow reports are helpful in planning what you might budget in future years based on what kind of revenue comes in. Just, it also allows you to plan.
Unmuted.
So even if they're not useful for tonight, they can be useful going forward.
Hey, Janet,
That's
on the
about all
first
I have.
page, on the
Jen,
first
can you
page
hear
under,
me?
I can hear you now, Ron.
Okay.
Except it's some weird echoey thing.
Now can you hear me?
Yep.
So there was a question. I heard somebody
Yes,
ask me a question.
Michelle.
on the first page under general, it says 2021 other personnel services. I'm assuming that we need to change that to 2022.
Let me see.
It's right under clothing allowance.
Hang on, hon, I'm sorry.
You're fine. It's
General
the 11th
fund.
one down under general.
And it's in revenues or in expenditures?
It's here on the budget form one under general.
Oh, you were in the budget form. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Let me go.
While you're looking at that, I need to unmute this person.
Unmuted.
Who did I just unmute?
Hey, Jen, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Ron.
I think me.
This other caller, it's very echoey and it repeats everything. Is that
Can you hear me,
Stan?
Jen? Yeah.
Yes. Okay. For some reason, I'm hearing myself or whoever's talking like come in through your phone. I don't know if everybody else is hearing that.
Yeah.
Who are you talking to?
Yeah, it's echoing.
Dan.
Michelle, I've corrected that. I see it.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. So I did reduce that MVH from 100,000 to 90,000. I hope everybody's still okay with that.
Yeah, now that we have Stan on here, Stan, do you want to give us your opinion on that?
I'm fine with it.
Okay. Well, then I think that's all we have then, Janet. Thanks for all your help and your advice.
You're welcome. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now is populate the ordinance for your adoption meeting. If there are no other changes, then I suggest that we plan to proceed to go forward with the budget as modified this evening.
Do we need a motion for that, or is that just like a heads up?
I'm not sure, Ron, do you need a motion for that, or can I just do that?
I would think so.
Okay. Well, the problem with the work session should result in kind of a settled position on, so the night that we bring the ordinance in front of you, it's hard to change on the fly. So any changes that you'd want, we'd really want to have them built in tonight. So
I think we're good.
Good.
Yeah.
I think we are too. Everybody else agrees, then I will go ahead and do it.
Everybody okay with that?
I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it.
Carla? Okay, we heard you. Okay, thanks, Janet.
You're very welcome. Do you want me to participate in your adoption hearing? If you do,
I don't
just
think
let
that's
me know.
necessary. Okay.
I'll have it ready.
Okay, have a good night. Thank you, Janet.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye. Nobody else hang up though. We still have to get through the last agenda item, which there are no other callers, and I didn't have anybody that wanted to comment on the budget. So next is the preliminary 2022 salary ordinance. So let me make sure we have everyone still. We do. Okay. Okay, so I'd like to suggest that we don't increase the salary of any elected official, but I do think that we do need to make one change to the elected official salary ordinance. This year, we were forced to remove the town utilities from the clerk treasurer's purview due to the lack of cooperation with the utility service board. We were forced to spend thousands of dollars building a new office for the clerk treasurer and for professional help with moving computers and phones and stuff. We've been delayed in reinstating our late fees and our shut-off, which cost the town utilities an untold amount of money. But the biggest issue is the clerk's duties and responsibilities have been greatly reduced. So in fairness to the taxpayers, we should be able to reduce her compensation proportionate to the job that she now has, because the job she now has is not the clerk treasurer job that she once had, but we are not allowed by the state to change her compensation. What we can do though, and I verified this with the State Board of Accounts and forwarded their memo to Reed, is eliminate the health insurance stipend we pay for her. So yeah, I would suggest removing the stipend from the clerk treasurer.
Yeah, actually.
And how exactly are you allowed to do that? Because that's considered compensation.
That was suggested with Alex, when she was in there, but the old council let her keep it in spite of the fact that she only, works 6 or 8 hours a week. But I think you can do that. Yes.
You guys tried to do that last year and Reed told you couldn't. He researched it. But you can go ahead and try. I'll report it to Mitchell.
Okay. Stan and Carla, do you have anything?
I agree with what you're saying. The stipend is for full-time employees, and by no means is she full-time.
We actually have to pay Bridget to do the job that Michelle's supposed to do by ordinance. So I think we should remove the stipend to be fair to the taxpayers. And I think the clerk is still getting overpaid, but that money can cover some of the added expense we have when we pay somebody else to do her job that she refuses to do. So I would make a motion to eliminate the health insurance stipend for the clerk treasurer and to have Reed change any other ordinances necessary to do that. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion by myself and seconded by Ron to remove the health insurance stipend for the clerk treasurer from the salary ordinance and to have Reed prepare changes if they're required to any other ordinance. We'll do a roll call vote before we do. Is there any other discussion? Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. How do you vote, Ron?
First of all, is Stan on here?
Yes.
Okay.
And did you have any other comments?
No,
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay. I just want to be
How do you
sure.
vote, Ron?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. How do you vote, Stan?
Yes.
How do you vote, Carla?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so that passes 4-0. Okay. All right. So the next thing that I would like to talk about is, let's see. So for Bridget, Bridget's job that she's doing as the utility clerk is vastly different from the job that the past utility clerks were doing. And she's doing an awesome job, and she has not had a raise since she started. So I'd like to discuss giving Bridget a $1 raise, whether we do that, effective next month, effective January 1.
If you do it next month, you would have to update this year's salary ordinance, not next year's.
I believe it's already covered in this salary ordinance.
It is, because there's a
Perhaps I'm
range.
wrong.
I think it's covered in it too.
Mm.
Can you hear, Jan? Can you hear me
Yes,
talking, Jan?
yes.
Okay,
Sorry, I was
okay.
just pulling up the salary ordinance.
Yeah, it says $10 to $20 an hour, but she also does exceed the 29 hours almost every single week. So I'm still illegally paying her over hours.
Does anyone else have any other comments about that? Giving Bridget a $1 raise.
I think she's doing a
I
tremendous
agree. I think we
job.
should.
Yeah, I do too. She's doing a tremendous job and a lot more work, so.
Okay. Any discussion about when we might implement that?
I think she's been there several months. We ought to go ahead and do it now. I think we've done that to clerks in the past. After several months, we've given them a raise, so I think we ought to do it right away.
Stan, do you have any opinion?
I agree with Ron. We could, yes. Go ahead.
Thanks. Okay, Carla, do you have anything?
No.
Okay, so Bridget started on March 15th, so, you know, she's past the 6-month mark, so I'm also comfortable, starting that as soon as possible. So I would move to give Bridget a $1 raise effective as soon as possible on the next pay period.
Second.
There's been a motion made by myself and seconded by Carla to give utility clerk Bridget a $1 raise effective the next pay period. Is there any further discussion? Before we vote? Okay. How do you vote, Stan?
Yes.
Ron? Ron? We may have lost Ron. Carla?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Ron, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Now we can. How do you vote?
Jen,
Yes.
I vote yes.
Okay, great. So that passes 4-0. All right. Moving on to the non-elected, which Bridget was not elected, but for Scott and Mark, what I would like to propose is giving them a performance stipend or a performance pay of $1,500 for each of them. This would be on the salary ordinance for next year.
I think they're doing a great job, and I think we ought to do that. We did not give them any money last year, so, but they're surely worth what we pay them, so I'm all for it.
Okay. Thanks, Ron. Ann, do you have anything?
No, I agree.
Okay. Carla?
I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay. Perfect. So, I'll have perhaps we need a motion. So I would make a motion to add a $1,500 performance stipend for both the town marshal and our town manager for the 2022 salary ordinance. And that will be payable just like their clothing allowance with their January payroll.
Yes, yeah, in January. I second it.
Okay, there's been a motion made by myself and seconded by Ron to add a $1,500 performance bonus or performance pay stipend to both Mark and Scott for the 2022 salary ordinance payable in January of 2022. Is there any further discussion before we vote? Okay, how do you vote, Stan?
Yes.
How do you vote, Ron?
Yes.
How do you vote, Carla?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So that passes 4-0. Is there anything else for the 2022 salary ordinance that anyone would like to discuss?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. Ron or Carla?
So the council's not getting a raise?
No raise for, it is my opinion, no raise for any elected officials.
Yeah, okay, just curious. Sounds good, nothing else.
Okay. Carla, did you have anything?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
There
just
is
joking
one-
there, Jen, you know. So.
Oh, I know. You were fishing for it, weren't you, Ron?
Yeah. So,
I almost suggested a hefty raise for the utility board president, but then I talked myself out of it. Okay.
Yeah.
I have no
Okay.
public comment and nothing in my email. There's no members of the public on the phone and nothing in my email from anyone that wanted to make a comment. So, having no further business for this meeting, our meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
thank you.